Welcome to the AI Boardroom, where we sit down with pioneers shaping the future of artificial intelligence. I'm Cheryl Tyas, Business Director at Primis Talent, and today we're talking to Dr. Prakash Kumar, Chief Strategy Advisor at Capgemini, AI visionary and one of the original minds behind agentic, multimodal and autonomous AI systems. With a career beginning in 1988, building probabilistic systems for pattern recognition, Dr. Kumar has since led transformation in Fortune 500 companies across industries. I hope that intro did you justice. Welcome, Dr. Kumar. How are you today?
Thank you so much for inviting me and having me with you. I'm really proud to represent Capgemini, which is full of highly talented people with respect to AI and agentic AI in this context. Thank you.
You're so welcome. And I thought we'd kick off things with asking you, what is an autonomous enterprise and what does an enterprise that thinks and adapts actually look like in practice?
I would suggest for you to think of it as a traditional organization and more as a living, as a less as a traditional organization, but more as a living organization, which regulates the ecosystem itself. It has got its strategic brain that is at the core. It uses the ephemeral workforce because the agents are spun up instantly, and it evolves itself continuously, and it provides the human oversight at the right attitude. People no longer spend time micromanaging processes. The system does it for itself, and it provides you a seamless integration with the world. That means it is talking to the external systems, communicating with it, getting the insights, and then providing you a response, or not only response, but also give you the solutions. This is an enterprise that doesn't just react to change. It senses, predicts, and shapes it. It's less of a company, more of an intelligent organism. That's what it is about.
Wow. I mean, it sounds kind of terrifying, really, but in a wonderful way. I don't know how to describe that. But I mean, I guess we started with automation, right? And now we're talking about autonomy. What's your perspective on that? How far have we come with that and how have we got there?
In the context of automation, because this thing has been done since we have started really working into the depth of artificial intelligence, not only AI, but also before that, so that the human work gets reduced and the focus is towards providing very accurate results by automating the system. It can be hardware, it can be done through the software part of it. And now the autonomous systems are using the foundations of what the automated systems were and calling these scripts from the autonomous perspective, that is taking their own inferences and resolving the solution, resolving the problem at the point of where it exists and applies from the experience, from the trained model, the most preferable decisions. And in this process, it can also be that it starts some of the automated scripts which has been already written before. Yeah. So that's what the autonomous system in this context means. Yeah.
I see. And how about chatbots? Because I feel like that's the part of AI that we're all most familiar with. But I know they're kind of behind us now. Why is that? You know, how are things being revolutionized just from simply the chatbot era?
I would say that it is not a smarter chatbot. Chatbot starts responding to the questions which it understands and try to provide you the responses accordingly. In this context, it is like this, that we are moving from static, so the stationary, from the pre-programmed tools to a dynamic active system. This is a self-organizing ecosystem of intelligence, which is beyond the next step, beyond the smarter chatbots, which we have been experiencing the last days.
So you're building these agents probabilistically. I know you've talked about stochastic agent generators. Keen to understand those.
That is a very, very good question. I mean, stochastic generation of agents depends on the problem or the natural ask which has been done by a customer at this point in time. And looking at it from the perspective of grammatic, that means you really sense what is being asked. There is a subject, there is an object, there is a predicate, there's an action that has to be taken on the object aspect of it. And in this context, the response which is coming up from the system, it is taking into consideration the entire circumstances, adapting it to itself, adapting to the circumstances and trying to respond to what is being asked. And that is what is helping here the stochastic generation, for example, to manage the workforces, it needs something to look into how to resolve that particular problem. And in this case, the only required agents which are invoked for the purpose are utilized. That means based on situational demand, the dynamical creation of agents as they are required. That is what the term stochastic in this context really builds in.
Thank you. And what about agentic AI factories? What are those and how do they work?
This is very interesting. At this point in time, if you look at different companies, they are creating their own agentic AI frameworks. Yeah? Like for example, SAP is creating their own agents factory. The Capgemini is also created quite a lot of, not quite a lot of agents, and now they are all embedded into a factory. This factory means that all the resources, everything which is required to run an agent is available. I have to give the context to the factory. This is what I would like to have, and that is how these agents then are brought into the real world. And these agents, which I just now spoke about from the stochastic perspective, this stochastic algorithm is taking care of, and it is going inside the factory and is just saying how to solve it. For example, if you're on the shop floor, so in this case, the agents which are required for example, the manufacturing execution systems, they are used for the logistic execution systems. And exclusively for that particular purpose, these agents then are generated. So the manufacturing execution system takes care of many individual tools and equipments which are on the shop floor and how they communicate with each other, and the logistic execution system makes sure that the material and the tools are provided to these machines. So you can think in terms of that I can solve a particular problem when it is asked, by organizing and asking the factory to provide me the corresponding agents and then invoke them so that they can start doing their work. That's what it is.
That's interesting. And that I understand that goes as far as full specialized agent squads. I know you've talked about retrievers, solver, data, and planner. Could you explain that a little bit for us?
That's a very straightforward. The retriever agent is understanding the question, that means in the natural language which you're asking, and trying to retrieve the information which is precisely for that particular question, and not moving into the typical well-known facts such as hallucinations. That means doing the zero hallucination part of it. Then you said that there is a solver, and the solver is based on the retrieved information, tries to create an answer to the ask, to the natural language ask, which is in place. And the validator agent, which is immediately effective, he just validates the response of the solver from the information that has been retrieved. And if it needs more information to really validate the situation from the real-time perspective, and this is how they start communicating with each other and they work with each other together.
I see. And no, that's interesting. I mean, how do we actually get to the point that we design agents that don't just solve tasks, but actually keep evolving with context?
The most important part is the word context. For example, the oxygen for the agents, like for us as human beings, as we have to breathe and we have to survive, the agents, they take this information as an input for themselves and start thinking. Thinking is in the sense of start rationalizing it or creating an inference out of the context which is coming out from the information that has been asked. It has got its own knowledge memory because of the experience and the training which these agents have gone through and keep on going through. Because at this point in time, we are in the steady state. There is quite a lot of work which has been done in the past, and there is quite a lot of agents which are quite effective at this point in time in solving that particular problem. When the moment the context comes, it says, okay, calculate me this and this for this financial year. So the agent retrieves, as we spoke before, the information exclusively in the context of financial year, that is last year, and all the financial transactional which are public which can be produced are extracted, are retrieved out of it, and it solves that based on what has been asked, that particular problem, and it validates it through the available data which is already there, and says this is the most recommended answer for that particular purpose. That's how the whole thing works.
I see. And how does that relate to like multimodal input and reasoning and going beyond text and voice as the modes?
It is going beyond the text and voice. It is also taking care of the visuals. It is also taking care of the events which are taking place. So the whole thing is very event sensitive, and it is observing how the things are going into consideration. So the moment it hears an audio to that particular content, audio is also a simple sentence in which there is a context. There are things which are hidden within the lines as it is spoken, and then there is visuals also which can give you an information which can be correct or cannot be correct, but there is some information over there. And then there is the possibility of the events which are taking place. So you're understanding exactly the situation, what is happening. So I give you a very simple example. For example, in the context of manufacturing, and you are creating the packaging of medicine, the tablets which are coming into a package, and then from there onto a pallet part of it. So the observation, which is video, is that sensing which medicine group or which package is this and what kind of medicine has been put into it. So that information then gets translated into the inference machine as that the product which is going in the package is the right one, and then from there you can put the things into the pallet and create the whole thing as such. So the whole mechanics which is taking place, which is context based, is that please pack these medicament, or how do you call it? Yeah, this medicine into these packages, and then put these packages into the pallets so that all of them are together and they have got their own charge numbers. So there is no ambiguity of understanding the context in this thing. This is how this whole thing is working at this point in time.
Amazing. And what are memoir knowledge layers? How do we actually teach agents to remember and evolve?
This is an excellent question. There is a principle behind that the agents which I have created and which I have sent to sleep, they always make their knowledge persistent in the knowledge base or in the vector databases or whatever the possibility for making it persistent. So at any point in time, when I create the agent or reactivate the agent in this case, or re-invoke the agent, what happens is that the entire memory space which has been taken into consideration for solving that particular problem, I'm talking about in this case that particular problem, and if we are going beyond the problem, it checks into the entire data or knowledge vault or the knowledge nuggets which are being created, because as we are moving at this point in time in our brain also, there is quite a lot of information which is coming from too many possibilities and too many observations, and something similar is there also. So these observations, with the help of the upcoming information around and for, gets then validated, and this is where the agents, they can be reactivated based on the memory which has been precisely captivated. It is just one thing is important, that at that particular point in time, that is the starting point. So this is how the retriever and the solver start working onto it, and then there is a validator. So what you do is that you kick off the whole thing, and then it starts understanding the entire environment in which what all events have occurred, what things have happened, and then based on that, talking also to other agents, retrieving information, this agent makes itself activated, and then it is at the level of the situation where we are, that is now, and starts putting its value to the entire ecosystem.
Amazing. And I know you've mentioned orthogonal agent squads. Would you mind explaining those as well?
I mentioned orthogonal agent squads, and this is a very mathematical discussion now. So orthogonality is coming from the mathematics. That means one particular agent cannot be represented by any other agent at all. When I put three agents together, and they do not have the functionality. So these three agents are all orthogonal, so they bring their own capabilities. And then through that, I can build a solution. Yeah? But individually, each agent does the work which it needs to do, and it is completely independent of making and taking decisions within the characteristics of what it is representing. So, for example, if it is doing some business process transaction for order to cash, if you can imagine that. So, order to cash is a process where an agent which manages only the orders and one agent that manages the cash aspect of the whole thing. So these two are orthogonal to each other, but they can invoke each other because the characteristics for doing and whatever is required from the regulatory perspective, from the company policies perspective, from the company philosophy perspective, that part is then managed by the agent who is tackling the orders. The cash part of it is managed by the other agent, which is taking care of how this thing gets translated, how the invoices are created, and all these things. So these two are two independent individuals or individual agents, which then combine together and solve a problem like order to cash in this context. So these two are orthogonal to each other.
What is the benefit of keeping them separate?
This is very interesting. To keep them separate, it makes it very clear that the orchestrating agent, which has invoked the order part and which has invoked the cache part of it, and both of them communicating with each other, producing a result, which is then managed by the orchestrator. But the important part here is that the cache one does not mix itself or does not start interfering into the order process as such. So these two things are kept separately, and they work on their own capabilities as such, and based on that, they provide the results which are requested, and from both sides, from the order as well as from the cache perspective, this thing is then orchestrated by the central agent, which is the one who is generating them or who requires as it is solving the problem, and to bring it into the context of the request which is coming from the customer. That means it solves the order to cash response as such. That's how. And to keep them independently, as you said already or asked, to keep them independently is very clear that the degree of freedom for the mistakes, for the hallucinations, is also limited within the context, within the activity which this agent is performing for that particular purpose. So it is an expert on its area, and it does precisely what is asked for, and it can manage it. So it can also happen that this agent, for example, cannot solve that ask which is coming into it. So it starts creating questions to the orchestrator and says, okay, this is where I can solve it, and these are my boundaries. So please help me to invoke another one, which is not taking care only of the cache, but which is taking care of the problem or the context which this agent generates to fulfill the purpose. So this is how the whole thing then starts working and solving the problem.
Provides more accuracy, I guess. It's kind of like protecting the integrity of each individual part of the task.
Absolutely. This is how the human individuals are also. I mean, if you're an artist and you are a painter, then within the boundaries of your painting, you have got your own individual watermark on it. And that is what these agents are also doing at this point in time.
Nice. Like working in a global business as opposed to a startup, I guess. You'd wear your hat and you specialize in that specific thing and be the best you can be at simply that.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Sorry, just trying to make sense of it for myself and my context as well. Why do you think most companies fail to use AI as a discovery engine rather than just an automation tool?
I was just thinking about that part also very often. The companies are having a big challenge with respect to the whole thing. They are expecting AI as a big hammer, faster hammer, when in reality it can only design the house. So interesting thing is that the boundaries of AI is due to the capability of ourselves giving them the possibility to help us as a tool to make it look better. So in this context, when I would like to give you an example of a building, so AI is in the position to do the entire building. So that means it looks at the closets, it looks at the bedroom, it looks at the whole thing, and it can create the entire design of the building. And the companies are thinking that it is a hammer, so I can hit there and I can get the nail into the wall. Yeah? So this is how the difference is. So there is a strategy blindness, because most of the leaders use AI for obvious efficiency wins without asking the deeper question: what entirely new opportunity could this reveal? Yeah? And this question they don't ask. They just utilize it. Okay, I have AI running and it is solving my problem, and I'm free with it. But you have to think beyond. That is the reason why we are talking today on the stochastic part of it.
What about AI as a creativity enabler and not just an efficiency tool? Because I don't know how many businesses are using it for that either.
It's a very powerful recommender. So it enhances the possibilities which you have never thought about. Yeah. The typical example of it is, for example, I will give you in the cancer research, when you're doing colonoscopy, that is what they call it in German. The doctors who is actually doing the activity at this point in time has got a pattern of mutations which he think in form of pictures could be detected at this point in time. So I will not limit it to, I was just limited to X, and X could be 1,000 or 10,000, depending upon the person and his experience. And this allows him to make his decisions while doing the process. So in this context, when we add an AI module to it, which is doing the visuals and brings in around 1 million pictures in addition to that, it increases the capacity. So it gives a recommendation to the doctor, say, looking at that, and then this in the past, these were the possibilities. And this is how it gives the food to the brain, which makes the doctor also think in different terms. So you can call it creativity, or you can call it the better way of doing the diagnosis in this context. Yeah. So I'm too scientific in this way. And if you take in terms of artists, you can think it in terms of the permutations and combinations of colors which it can provide to draw a picture. And that is again a recommendation, and it's his, psychological view of his subjective view of that picture, that he says, okay, yeah, Amin, I like this thing, and then I would. So this is how the enhancement of creativity can take place.
I see. And on the flip side of that, do you think automation can be overly deterministic?
Yes, automation leads to always, because an automate engine is, you give the inputs, you define the mechanics of what it does with the inputs, and you say this is the output. Yeah? So it will always produce the same. And in the context of this, I give in the inputs, let the system play stochastically, make all possible permutations and combinations, and provide you a result for the situation you are in. Yeah. So the automate will always provide you one solution or a collection of solutions, but here you have got the variants of solutions in this context, and that is the part which we need to endeavor, and we have to integrate it into our daily life, and then start working in that direction. What are feasible possibilities for solving a particular thing in this case?
Well, I wanted to turn our attention a little bit to something that you've mentioned in the past as well that I noticed around building human digital twins from genetic predispositions to individual behavior patterns, and this 5D chess piece also. But I'd love to understand, your thoughts around these unforeseen variables and what does predicting the improbable mean for this kind of strategic AI design?
So there are ways of looking at digital twins. That is always the creation of a virtual view of the real world. In the whole context, I have looked at it, a digital twin, to look more like the human twins as they are created. So the moment the child is born, has got his own genotype, and then when it starts reacting with the circumstances, it gets its phenotype. And this genotype, the individual genes, are the characteristics of the twin in this case. So if I think in terms of a turbine, which in the initial stage is not decided whether it's going to produce the power, do the power generation part, or it is going to be inside an airplane. but the mechanics of creating it, it has got its own genotype. The moment I start shaping it, the moment it is created, it is there. So all characteristics of it are there. Yeah. And the moment I start modulating it further, so I can make it into a form of that it can be used for the airplane. So I can make it into the form of so that it can be used also for the generation of power, yeah, in this case. So I created a genotype, that is the turbine
Wow.
itself. And then the phenotype is for the purpose it is getting used. So it's the same thing with the child. The child is born, it has got all characteristics. It takes the form and the shape, and suddenly he's a brilliant musician, yeah? Because he learned all these things and then he started utilizing it. And through this, you will see that there is a very huge permutations and combinations available in this context. So same thing happens here in the digital twin. So the individual genes, you can imagine them as agents, yeah, agents, individual genes. So they have got, as you spoke about orthogonality, they take this orthogonal part. That means that part of the gene does only that particular work. When it is combined into a whole thing, makes sense, and it starts responding to the environment it is growing. So this is how the phenotype of it gets built up together. So looking at coming back to your question in the context of human behavior and digital twins, I can create a digital genotype of a machine. I can create a genotype of my financial transactions of myself and what I'm doing, all these things, and try to find out where did things, where the prediction is going towards, why I'm ruined completely. So this is what is happening, the whole thing. So you are moving from the predictable to probabilistic part of it. That is, you're moving around uncertainties, yeah, which is unknown unknowns. Yeah? And that is where the AI is helping a lot, because it gives you the possibility and probability of doing the simulations of these topics. Yeah? And then at the end, you are moving from the optimizations towards the resilience. So these digital twins, through their phenotype and through their expertise, like this sitar specialist Ravi Shankar, he is just master of playing the string instrument. Yeah? And this is how it gets optimized itself, learning through the environment, learning through the situation. So this is what is moving towards, that is, these twins, they move, they get created, then they move from beyond optimization towards the resilience. That is what is behind that.
It's incredible to think about. It just makes me think of human twins growing up in different environments with different contexts, being taught different things, and then learning different skills in the end.
And they have done many experiments also in this direction, isn't it, in the past?
Yeah, for sure. Just not this way, just not with AI.
With
Well,
AI,
maybe you would know.
Not with AI, but people have tried some of the experiments. How will a child behave if he's grown up in a pure nature or in the city? What kind of influence and what kind of thinking it takes place? And this is what the individuality plays a role, and this is what the orthogonality plays a role. The child with the characteristics in the forest where he's grown can take over. Yeah, can always learn. This is the learning aspect of it, but has an individuality with that characteristics, it survives, it makes decisions, it makes solutions, it solves the issues which it is facing at that particular point. As I would not say issues, the challenges which it is facing at that particular time. And this is what is the ask which I was also looking towards. How these agents can be. So I can get this child and I can get this child, bring them together and solve a very different problem.
Interesting. I mean, by that same token, should AI agents, in your opinion, ever be considered sentient-like? If not, what's the right metaphor to use for that?
I was looking at that part also very interestingly. The problem is that AI agents work on absolutely realistic world. So the emotional aspect and all these things, I don't want to touch that part at all, because that is what the agents cannot. And they work on probabilistic. They're looking at optimizations. They're looking at resilience of a solution. They're looking at at the events which are happening, and then from there that events leads to this and this and this, and this is the area where these things are working as such. And I just want to make sure that that this aspect of it getting this emotional, what do you call it, sensitivity, that is not possible at this point in time with the agents which we are at the moment working with. I am always, as at this point in time, from my person itself, yes, it is a very powerful tool which I can utilize for myself for doing things, and that probably could have been impossible before, but with the rational perception and the rational thought process using this tool. That is where I will stop
for now. I know you referred earlier to AI going off to sleep. What does it actually mean for AI to sleep, reflect, or dream?
Dream, I would not say, but sleep, yes. The reason is very simple. It's a mathematical reason behind that about the economics of agentic AI systems. So if you can imagine that let this represent ourselves. If I am one of the agents, I am consuming resources. I am eating food. I am consuming electricity. I am consuming to do some of the calculations. I put the numbers together. So if I keep them all active, I have got a cost. And if I keep them in a balanced way of looking at it, so I will manage the costs and keep them as low as possible. And that is the reason why you can always send an agent to sleep when it has done its job and it is no more required as such. This is what the economical scale is, the criteria behind that. I mean, how can I balance this thing? And this is how I keep on sending them to sleep.
So yeah, like you go and have 5 minutes off and Bob will take over.
Yeah, precisely. And when the agents are running, they are the ones which are solving that particular issue or an organizational issue. Then they are busy, and this is a workforce which I can initiate and then bring them back to the normal so that the resource consumption is very, very low as I'm looking at it from the business aspect.
So it's kind of, do one thing at a time as you would with an employee, a human employee, as opposed to getting them to do multiple different tasks at once and not letting them to sleep.
As we spoke before, orthogonality plays a role. These agents can also take over the tasks in which they invoke the other agents, which can then execute the task. So at the end of the day, the steady state is such that you have got the lowest possible cost of solving that particular problem. Think it that way. Yeah? So you utilize only as many agents as you need. You utilize only as many required capabilities as you need, because some agents are extremely expensive because of the ask and the task they need to solve. Yeah. For example, the probabilistic agents which are going into the uncertainties and creating the simulation aspect of what could be the possible and probable situations one can enter into, that can also consume a huge amount of energy. And I think you might have heard about the Monte Carlo simulation and all these things. These agents which are doing these things can become very, very expensive. And depending upon the purpose, depending upon the amount which is available for an organization, we have to make ourselves a thought about how economically I can utilize the whole thing. And I will keep the human workforce human in the loop always whenever it is required, because some of the agents are not perfection always. Yeah. They provide a recommendation where, from the organizational perspective, the autonomous decision making can be re-kicked. Yeah? As I was doing my doctorate thesis, I was also having that dilemma between two and which one of them is right. So there is a very minimal difference, I would say, in nanometers, because I was doing on the wafer, the planarity of the wafer, and these agents, defect agents, they were causing. I made them fight to tell me why is that particular defect relevant. So this agent is relevant than the other. So you came to a point where there was a dilemma, and this dilemma I had to solve it through the human in the loop, yeah, because of the experience and the past and all these things. So they need always, when they come to a particular point where they cannot move forward, then they start looking around. Yeah? They can get all possible from the large language models. They are normally not exposed outside, so they're within the closed system, but they can go outside and start getting information and start looking into it, what could be the cause. And that is the reason where, as you said about the sensitivity also, that I have to make sure that, not I have to, but the agents have to make sure that when they come to a conflict or to a dilemma, that gets resolved by having human in the loop. And at the end of the day, the whole system works. So we were talking about the workforce. So there is the workforce, there is a digital workforce that is through the agents, and there is human also involved, although the whole thing is working autonomously. But at the end of the day, it will be the person who will be then asked for, okay, these are the laws and rules around where we are living in. Yeah? So that needs also be taken into consideration.
Yeah, I mean, what are the ethical, moral, and philosophical implications of generative autonomy?
This is a very, very challenging question because I've been working on that area also. So I would say to autonomous solving problems within the boundaries which are defined and the resolution which is done at a very high pace. These stochastic agents, this solver and the validator, they are the ones who are working very intensively together. And for the situation in which that event has occurred, that has caused to understand the problem and to solve that problem, part of it. And as long as this mechanics is given and the recommendations are provided, or under circumstances through the training that they understand, okay, how to do the inferencing of these things, all good. In the context of morality and ethics, I would just say that I personally have given only the recommendations at the end of the day, and at the last, but the final decision then is made by the organization who has invoked that particular part of it. So it is very difficult to answer this moral and ethical challenges. It provides a recommendation. That's at that point in time, if there is an ethical question, there is a recommendation provided by that. And the system shows you how the whole thing is going to work, and also can simulate and show it to you what are the consequences and what are the possibilities and probabilities in the uncertain world which we are looking at. And depending upon the context, again, yeah, what question has been asked. So if I'm on the shop floor, the question is different, yeah, because I have to make the machine run. Yeah. In the context of how much decision capability should be given to that particular part of it, I would say I'll stop at the point where the recommendation to this ethical and moral question is given with all possible simulations, and the last person, whoever's asked that question, can then make a decision what is the step he wants to do in. But for example, for a farmer, when he has to plow the land, yeah, so it gives a very clear understanding of it, the geography of the land, how the earth is put together, what compositions are there. These are all mathematical things. And then I say, okay, what kind of plow I need to get a 10, 20 centimeters depth of where I can sow the seeds. Yeah? So these things are clear for me. And when it comes into the subjective aspect of the whole thing, because then you have got different opinions, different suggestions. What I can suggest is there also can take the help of it. What would be the best recommendation for the purpose? Yeah? So that's where I will, in this context, not go beyond that.
Fair, very fair. Look, throughout your career, you've seen the future come alive, essentially, multiple different times, seen what might happen, then see it come to fruition and see what's coming next. And when you and I talked originally, we talked about the potential future of business and how these agents are potentially even going to become the next CIO, CRO. I'd love to hear your perspectives around that and what businesses are going to look like in the future.
Yeah, because we really discussed about it. So the self-organizing, that is the objective of this SEO framework, yeah. Evolutionary orchestrating AI framework, and self-orchestrating also in this case. So if you think in terms of the CEO, what is his objectives typical? He is to manage the business, which is doing for whatever purpose he is doing it. And to manage that business, he needs that there is the economics is taken care of. he needs to take care of that the workforce is happy and working and celebrating. So same thing is, you can imagine that a digital twin of that. This means that I create the genotype of an organization. I create a genotype and phenotype in this case with the help of self-orchestrating also agentic AI framework. And so he picks up the task. It has got a challenge, that is the entire trade market and everything is now being disrupted. Yeah, it has got also the same challenge. The things are getting disrupted, so it has to take care of. So here he starts thinking, okay, I start reducing the workforce. He starts thinking, okay, I have to do the production maximum based on the availability, and I can take out the resources which I want to need. So this thing is in principle working precisely in parallel. This thing, the stochastic engine sometimes requires the emotional and subjective input for certain decisions. So that's why this recommendation goes to this side and says this is how it's going to happen. These are the chief revenue officers, CFOs, and all this. And so he's doing the whole financial engineering part of it, is doing the FinOps of the whole thing, that is financial operations of the entire setup which has been put together, plus of the entire organization aspect of it. So you can see it from the technology perspective, you can see it from the financial perspective. So all the agents, they are working together and providing all these inputs at any point in time. So you've got always a possibility to make it more resilient. I mean, optimization is done through the automation and other activities, but you can not only optimize, you can become more resilient about the entire structure that this thing is working. The same thing on the CEO, where the human workforces are there. These things are also happening there itself. Yeah? They are self-organizing themselves. They are changing the structures. They are making sure how they can respond to the market demand and all these things. And the similar characteristics, so similar genotype I have created on the agentic AI perspective. And at the moment, we are just looking at it, how it works, and what kind of advantages we are going to get into it. But there is a vision, there's a big picture, thought, and now we are translating these things into for the purpose. It will not solve at this point all the problems, yeah, but it will solve specific ones, which then added together, as most of the people, they start moving into this direction, then they are communicating with each other. So you will be seeing very soon, you have heard about multi-agent systems, you will be hearing poly-agent systems, where the agents among different companies communicate with each other to solve a problem. So you can have an individual where it solves your problem. You can have another company which is also solving their problem, and they are solving it in a way, I mean, if they want to exchange, if they want to make it available in the brokering market, so they can then talk, it can ask that and train it for its purposes and put the characteristics as such. So you will be using not the multi-agent system, but the poly-agent systems beyond the different
like a fractional CEO or CMO. Yeah, interesting. And what about like if you wanted to make a digital twin of like Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs and put them in a CEO role of a company and give it all their characteristics? Would that be possible, or is that a ridiculous question?
I will keep it at that. I mean, I will not do that kind of exercise.
Stay within the ethical boundaries of what the.
I mean, we are not here to replace anybody. We can take their brains. They have got fantastic ideas, and just their brilliance, combine it together, and that's an experience which my agents will really like to have, to decide and how to think in different probable situations. And you can work very intensively, and you can simulate the scenarios and all these things. But Steve Jobs and Mark, it's not the objective. It's the experience that one can take from them.
Yeah. What about university students right now? Because I feel everybody in education at the moment is going through such a huge shift. You know, we started out writing pen to paper, and then obviously we got computers and the internet, and now AI is literally doing everything for everybody. How do you even assess somebody's skills these days? I mean, I haven't been into a university in a while, but how can university students prepare for this?
Also, a very, very simple thing. There are all orthogonal. Everyone is individual because they've got their own fingerprints. Yeah? They have got their own capabilities. I would suggest, for me, from my perspective, this is my personal, that is, stop training for a single job. Start training for a lifelong partnership with intelligence that isn't human. Be an AI collaborator, not a competitor. That's how they should go on. Double down on human-only skills, critical reasoning, creativity, emotional intelligence, the things machines can't authentically replicate. That's what you have to look into. Become T-shaped with an AI layer. So one is your capability and the T is crossover. Then adopt a learn, unlearn, relearn mindset. That is what I would suggest to these university students. Be collaborative.
Yeah, embrace it and bring it into what you're doing. But yes, it's a crazy thought. I guess everything was a crazy thought at one time. If you had to predict one major shift in AI before 2030, what would it be?
That's a very interesting question. I've been looking at it. There will be a leap in 2030 from reactive tool, which is based on automation, to autonomous collaborator. Yeah? That means there will be a lot of collaboration which is going to take place. So you will, instead of working from commands towards goals, you define your goal and you work for that. This is what is going to happen in 2030. There'll be poly-agent ecosystems. Specialized agents, they will collaborate like Hive in a beehive, hive mind kind of set. Yeah. Some creating, some executing, and some doing research. So there will be a combination of all these three, yeah, which is also happening at this point in time. And all of it is self-organized. And that is what I've been talking about since beginning for the orchestrator. Yeah, that is self-organized. There'll be a new human role. We move from users to leaders of AI swams, focusing on visions, ethics, and creative direction while the agents handle the operations. So you elevate yourself.
Thank you.
But
look,
the last sentence which I was looking at, by 2030, AI will not just answer your questions, it will work alongside you, anticipating the next ones before you even think to ask.
Definitely terrifying, but I mean, handy. Hopefully we're not, we don't become ephemeral, but like you say, they're going to be there for the operational side of things. So I guess it's just like any other shift, really. And look, I'm aware that we've been talking for some time and I've honestly enjoyed every minute of it, but I just wanted to finish by asking something that I probably would normally have asked at the beginning, but we dived straight in because you have a lot of interesting things to tell us. But I just wanted to ask, what's your earliest AI?
I started somewhere in 1988. There it started.
Wow.
Yeah. As we were praying, that time there was chess computers. Yeah. So I was looking at the bridge one. Yeah. How can we play a 52 cards game and adapt it through the uncertainties? That's unknowns, because there are always there is a distribution there. So that's was the starting point of it. Looking at it since 1977, when I started my mechanical engineering studies in India, yeah, and always being encountered through the philosophers. That's the reason why I came to this, the country of philosophers, Germany. So, I mean, that's what I understood that time. And these philosophical questions which have been asked and the patterns being searched through these books in the literature and in physics and chemistry of understanding the ununderstandable at that point in time, combining these things together, laid the foundations for me to look into that direction.
Incredible. And here we are. Look, I'm gonna close out, but I could talk to you all day. But is there anything final that you wanted to share before we do?
What I just want to share is that let your mind fly. You don't have any limitations. Just make the maximum out of it. Be your own twin. Start, instead of optimizing things, make it resilient.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Prakash Kumar, for the visionary discussion. I really hope everybody's enjoyed it, and I hope you have too. I hope we get to speak to you again as well. And, if anyone out there is rethinking what AI means for their business or their future, I truly hope this episode has sparked your imagination, because it certainly did mine.
Thank you so much to you too, and wish everybody all the best. Thank you.
Guys, see you soon.